Hey Bruce, one of my favorite players, really like in the whole league, is I guess someone who's not really a part of the developmental arc of the Raptors, but Jose Calderon. Can you talk about his effect on the offense and kind of the way that he's one of the older players, what he does for the Raptors and why everyone should like him, or should they?
Well, I like him. I like him as a person, especially because he's a very earnest, honest person. I don't know if this is the best place for him anymore, because
Mm-hmm.
he's a true point guard. He's not a great defender. His shooting
Right.
kind of has disappeared and come back year to year. When he's on, he's really good. But he's the kind of player who I think would really thrive with a better team, with guys who can
Mm-hmm.
finish. Because if you stick him in pick and rolls, he can see the floor and he can do stuff, and he loves passing the ball with the right
Right.
coach. Like, I'd love to see Mike D'Antoni get a hold of Jose
I
Calderon
was just
and
thinking
run
that.
100 pick
Yeah.
and rolls a game, right? Like, it'd be, but he hasn't had that here. With Jose, he's probably overpaid. It's almost certainly overpaid.
Hmm.
But I still think it was interesting because Brian Colangelo could have used the amnesty on him this year if he'd really wanted to. He could have had a much worse team and really gone for tanking, because this was the first year Brian Colangelo said the word rebuilding. And he treated it like a big deal that he even said the word. But he didn't, because he decided he wanted to see if he could rehabilitate Jose Calderon, and he's managed it. Like, he's back to being an NBA player. Whereas last year there were points where he wasn't. Like, he wasn't an NBA player
Hmm.
anymore. His jump shot had regressed. His confidence regressed. You talk to people close to him, they'd say he can be, his confidence can be shaken, and that's why I think it's
Hmm.
all, again, it'd be better if he's on a better team. Like, look at him when he plays with Spain. He knows he belongs with that team,
Hmm.
and they know how to play. They know tendencies. They're good players, and he fits in wonderfully with the Spanish national program. I think he has potential to be that in the NBA if he can stick with a good group of guys for a certain amount of time. But he's running out of time, right? Like, as much as Steve Nash makes us believe otherwise, point guards have a shelf life, so he's not going to
Right.
be doing this forever. But again,
Yeah.
he's an NBA player again, and he's one of the guys who really he loves making his teammates better. When he first came in the league, he wouldn't call them teammates because his English wasn't good enough. He'd call them friends. So he'd say, I passed to my friends. I tried to make my friends better. And that kind of summed up a lot of what Jose Calderon was about to me, is that he believes in the fabric of the team, and he's had to go through
Right.
some really lousy teams here, which is tough.
Yeah, he that's a really great story. I want to get back to Casey, and I think when a defense, I think it's pretty much consensus that the best kind of coach to have for a young team is one that's going to put in a good team defensive philosophy
Yeah.
and utilize their athleticism, and that's kind of the best way to be competitive for a young team because they're just not going to have probably not going to be able to score a ton,
Mm-hmm.
um, and keep control of the ball, whatever. Casey doesn't seem to have kind of that Scott Skiles personality. What do you see from him in how he interacts with players?
I don't think he's Scott Skiles, because Scott Skiles burns out. He burns himself out. He
Right.
burns his teams out. Like, he's one of those hard asses. I mean, I always think of Scott Skiles as the guy who picked a fight with Shaquille O'Neal in practice. Like, that's Scott Skiles. Dwayne Casey's a lot. Dwayne Casey is a little bit what I wanted Sam Mitchell to be, because Sam Mitchell understands players very well, and he understands the league, and he can be funny and he can be tough. But he never had the ability to teach defense. He was never that strong on X's and O's, and he had a little bit of a self-destructive bent to him. Casey's like what Sam Mitchell should be, is that he can be funny and he can be tough. He fights for his players and he's intense, but he actually can translate defensive principles, which in this league not
Hmm.
everybody can do. It's interesting actually that the Mavericks have stayed a pretty good defensive team without him and without Tyson Chandler. But
Well,
to
Celtics
take
were
this
good
group,
without Thibodeau too, but
yeah, true. But I mean, with this group, last year there was a point where you looked around the floor and you went, okay, Jose Calderon, DeMar DeRozan, Hedo Turkoglu. There's a couple of years ago. Hedo
God.
Turkoglu, Andrea Bargnani, and you go, geez, like, DeMar DeRozan might be the best defender on the floor. As a rookie, he was probably the best defensive player on this team. Um, this
He's only
this is
tangentially
essentially,
aware of the ball when he's not guarding it.
yeah, no, like, and that's Andrea Bargnani. I've always felt like it's like when you play peekaboo with a kid, and it's like you stop existing when you with a baby. It's like that with the ball, right? Like, he's actually not that bad a one-on-one defender. He's actually even when he switches off screens and stuff like that, he's not bad. But when you get him into help situations, he doesn't understand. Like there's a fundamental disconnect in his mind of the ball's swinging over there, I should rotate over. Um, and
Hmm.
again, the fact that Dwayne Casey has managed to build a defensive culture with this team, I think speaks volumes. He's not going to be coach of the year, but he's won, I think it was 13 games with this roster without their only big time scorer. Um, I think this might be Brian Colangelo's best move as a general manager in Toronto is getting Dwayne
Yeah.
Casey as in charge of this program. That and getting an assistant GM who strangles him before he gets to the phone and makes another deal. Like those two
Yeah, I was
things.
just gonna say, what do you
I've,
make of
yeah,
Colangelo?
Brian's in an interesting spot because his contract expires after next year, and he loves the action. He loves it so much. He wants to be involved, and that's why I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he even wants to be in Toronto long term because I think he'd love to be like the general manager in New York, just because he's like a gambler and he's really good at crafting really creative trades. Like the deal that would have brought Tyson Chandler from Charlotte that Michael Jordan nixed at the last second was like three-dimensional chess. It was a beautiful deal, and if Michael Jordan doesn't pull it at the last minute, then they get Tyson Chandler, and they're a very different team last year. Against Tyson Chandler and Andrea Bargnani would have fit. But Brian is in a situation where he has to be patient now, but his contract doesn't dictate that he can be. So next year, they're going to get Valanciunas, who I don't know how ready he's going to be, but the signs are good that he's a real NBA player. They're going to get a high draft pick, ideally higher than where they are right now. I think even Brian knows that they're winning too much right now for the long term, but they're going to get another top 10 draft pick. And he's going to have $15 million in salary cap space. Now, what he does with that money is going to be really interesting because it's been free agency in Toronto where he's really had big problems. Like, again, the Hito Turkoglu deal was brilliant conceptually, like to get Hito Turkoglu the way that they got him and still have salary cap space left over and all this stuff. But the judgment was terrible. So I just don't know if Brian Colangelo has to have a good team next year to a degree. They've got new owners taking over at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, probably in the fall. So he's going to have to impress the new owners and keep his job. And how do you do that if you're, again, he talked about rebuilding this year instead of rebuilding. They still are rebuilding. They're still incredibly
Right.
young, and they're not going to bring in a top level free agent. They're not going to trade for Dwight Howard and transform this. He's got to have a patient approach, but it's got to show some kind of evident dividends that will allow him to get another contract. And I'm not sure exactly how he manages that. I think he is in the right frame of mind right now, but I could see him getting a little itchy on the trigger too soon and splashing that money at somebody and making a crippling move. Because he does have a history of that. And I like Brian, and I've argued with him over this, but he does not handle rebuilding well. He handles being a contender well. And that's his
Who
strength. So
doesn't?
it's been really interesting to see him. Yeah, exactly. But it's been really interesting to see him in this capacity of being a guy who is not a part of the action. Moves don't help. Like big trades and stuff don't help. And he's trying not to win. He's trying to both win and not win at the same time. And so he's in a really funny situation. The problem is, I don't know if I trust the brain trust of MLSE to get a better GM. And they may be stuck with him.
Well, we'll see. It's an interesting time for this organization. You've got the right coach. You've got some athletes on the front line. And, maybe the Raptors will be relevant again sometime soon. Thanks a lot for coming on, Bruce.
My pleasure, guys.
That was awesome.